To end my weaving, I like to add some fringe or some Rya Knots to create some texture hanging down at the bottom. These can also be used up earlier in your weaving too, but it's a nice way to end it. The length of your fringe kind of just depends on you. I'm gonna have it be kind of on the longer side, go down, measure it all the way down to the bottom of my loom. So I'm gonna double it up when I do that and snip. And then I can use that same string to measure my other one. And if I'm making all of them the same length, I can do the same. I can even get a piece of cardboard that I can wrap it around and snip all of them at the same time to make them the same length. Okay, so now I'm gonna find the center because I want this green to be in the center. So I'm gonna measure out 2 because I need 2 warp strings to do a Rya. Sometimes you can do it over 3 or 4. I'm doing it over 2 today though. What's gonna happen is these are gonna go over top, and then the ends on this side are gonna come up through the middle. And then on this side, the ends will come up through the middle as well. And then what I like to do is match up the ends, pull this loose, and then pull it tight again, just so they even out. And then I'll tuck that up against my edge. And then I have my first Rya knot. I'm gonna flip it up like this though, because it can fall through the warp strings. And then I'm gonna come back and start doing my blue on the sides. So I'm gonna work my way over. I have these 2 warp strings. So I'm gonna go over top, underneath, around and underneath, up through the center there. I'm gonna match up my ends, pull this loose, pull it tight, and push it up. So I have my next one. I'm gonna flip that up so it's not in the way. I'm gonna go over my next one. So over those 2, come up through the center of them, and up through the center. Match up my ends, pull loose, and then tight, and push up, and off to the side. And then same with these 2. Over, up through the center, up through the center, match up my ends, pull it loose, pull it tight, up to the top. And then I am going to do my other sides as well. Now, depending on the thickness of your yarn, you may need more strings of yarn. Like I used 2 for this. I could have used just 1. It probably would have worked just as well. But I wanted a fuller fringe. And if you were using even more, you might want to go over top of 3 warp strings and then come up on either side. For me today, this worked. Okay, over, under. So you can play around with different ways that you could use your fringe and having it shorter or longer inside of your actual weaving. Okay, so once I have that, my last step will be to secure it. This is the end of my weaving, so I am going to use a twining stitch. Notice how it kind of pulled out a little bit too. That will help reset my warp strings to be able to be nice and tight. So I'm gonna match up my ends, and then I'm gonna do my twining stitch where I go around. And I made another video of this, so if you need to go back and look at this video again, you can do that. But this is gonna be my way to tighten this up and make sure that those Rya knots are secure, because if I don't do this or a plain weave stitch, those Rya knots can easily fall out, which is why I flipped them up while I was working on the other ones, because they'll start to come back through the warp strings. So it's not as strong of a stitch. So I just want to make sure that I'm making it secure, especially at the bottom of my weaving. Okay, so now that's nice and tight. I can push that up, and that's going to start holding in place all of those Rya knots that I added in there. Now, when I finish a weaving, I always like to have at least 3 rows. You could probably get by with 2, but I like to have 3, maybe 4, to make it very secure on the bottom of my weaving. But I'm going to show you just with those 2. I would knot it and bring it back, but I just want to flip that down and show you how that's now hidden behind there. but it makes it secure. These aren't going to fall through my warp strings, and now I just have this nice fringe that's hanging down.